What if the exhaustion you feel isn't burnout, but a summoning? What if the desperate urge to disappear from the world is not a sign of you breaking down, but of you being called away, pulled from the stage of modern life by something ancient, powerful, and hidden within your own soul? The greatest desert is not made of sand, but of noise, and the deepest souls are now being commanded, not asked, to leave it. We exist, most of us, within a landscape we seldom name. It is not a place of earth and stone, but of mind and spirit. Carl Jung called it the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times. Today, this spirit has cultivated a vast and shimmering desert. It is a desert of endless information but scarce wisdom, a desert of constant connection but vanishing intimacy. It is a marketplace where personas are traded like currency, where every inner thought is pressured into an outer performance, and where silence is treated not as sacred, but as empty space to be filled with the next distraction. This is the spiritless desert, and its foundational rule is simple. You must be seen to exist. You must broadcast, update, react, and perform. Your value is measured in the echoes you generate in this great, hollow chamber of digital ghosts and fleeting trends. The soul, that deep ancient core of your being, is not welcome here. It is too slow, too quiet, too complex. It does not fit into a profile or a status update. And so, it is asked to wait outside, to starve quietly, while the persona is fed a constant diet of hollow validation. For the deep soul, to live in this desert is to suffer a profound and corrosive dehydration. At first, it tries to adapt. It creates a more dazzling persona. It learns the language of superficiality. It attempts to find nourishment in the fleeting mirages of likes and shares. But the soul cannot be deceived for long. It knows it is starving. And when a living organism is starving or poisoned by its environment, it does not politely ask for a change of scenery. It initiates a radical, non-negotiable survival protocol. This is the unspoken reason for the retreat. It is not a choice, not a preference for solitude, not a social anxiety to be medicated. It is a psychic fever. It is a somatic, spiritual, and psychological immune response to an environment that has become pathogenic to meaning itself. The exhaustion that feels like lead in your bones is the first sign of this fever. The sudden inability to tolerate small talk, the feeling of being an actor forgetting their lines in their own life. These are not failures of character. They are the symptoms of the soul's immune system finally activating, finally declaring war on the trivial. The psyche is raising its temperature to burn away the infection of meaninglessness. It is forcing a quarantine, compelling the individual to retreat from the source of the sickness, the relentless, soul-withering demands of the spiritless desert. This is where we must grasp one of Jung's most critical distinctions, the cosmic war between two great spirits. The first is the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, which we have described. It is the force of the collective, the horizontal, the immediate. It is loud, fashionable, and obsessed with the new. It is the spirit that builds empires of commerce and information, but leaves the inner temple in ruins. But there is another spirit, an opposing force that dwells not in the collective noise, but in the individual's silence. This is the Geist der Tiefe, the spirit of the depths. This spirit is ancient, primordial, and vertical. It is not concerned with what is trending, but with what is eternal. It speaks not in tweets, but in dreams, not in headlines, but in synchronicities. It is the voice of the soul, the whisper of the self, the accumulated wisdom of the entire human journey encoded in the collective unconscious. For an entire lifetime, the spirit of the times holds sway, its voice drowning out all others. But for the deep soul, there comes a point where the starvation becomes too severe, the fever too high. And it is at this breaking point that the spirit of the depths performs its most dramatic and merciful act. This act is not a gentle invitation. It is a sacred kidnapping. The retreat from society is not you running away from the world. It is the spirit of the depths pulling you out of it. It is a divine intervention, a forceful rescue mission to save you from the tyranny of the superficial. Like the myths of old where a hero or goddess is abducted into the underworld, you are being taken from the known world of the sunlit desert and pulled down into the subterranean realms of your own being. This is why the retreat feels so compulsive, so non-negotiable. It is not your ego making a decision. It is an archetypal force claiming you. The spirit of the depths has seen your soul withering on the vine and has decided that the risk of the journey inward is less than the certainty of death in the world of surfaces. It pulls you away from the noise so you can finally hear its voice. It isolates you from the crowd so you can finally meet yourself. This feeling of alienation and withdrawal is, in truth, an embrace from a much older, wiser part of you. The fever is not the illness, but the beginning of the cure. The retreat is not an end, but an initiation. This is the great unspoken truth. Your soul is not abandoning the world, it is being reclaimed by the universe within. For the sensitivity that the world calls a weakness is, in fact, the very faculty that hears the life-saving call of the depths. Comment, I answer the depths if you are ready to heed this sacred call, and subscribe to learn the language of the world within. So you have yielded. The psychic fever has broken the chains of obligation, and you have stepped out of the spiritless desert. You have entered the quarantine of the self. But this threshold is not a sanctuary of immediate peace. It is a disorienting vestibule, an antechamber of profound unease. The first thing you notice is the silence, and it is not a gentle, pastoral quiet. It is a roaring, accusatory silence, an immense void created by the sudden absence of the desert's cacophony. For years, your psychic metabolism learned to run on the adrenaline of external noise, on the sugar rush of notifications, and the constant, low-grade hum of collective anxiety. Now, that sustenance is gone. You are in withdrawal. This initial phase of the retreat is a kind of spiritual decompression, and it is excruciating. The ghosts of the world you left behind crowd into the vacuum. The internalized voice of the zeitgeist becomes a merciless inquisitor, whispering accusations of failure, of laziness, of irrelevance. Who are you, it taunts, without your audience? What is your worth without your productivity? You are haunted by a phantom guilt, a deep-seated feeling that this stillness is a form of dereliction, a betrayal of the modern world's primary commandment. Thou shalt be busy. This is the great ordeal of the threshold, the unlearning. You must unlearn the language of the desert before you can begin to comprehend the language of the depths. The ego, stripped of its familiar mirrors and social feedback, panics. It flails in the silence, desperate for a reflection, any reflection, to prove it still exists. This is a period of radical dispossession. You are being emptied of the false self, of the accumulated debris of social conditioning. It feels like loss, like a slow erasure of identity. But what is truly happening is the clearing of a space. The spirit of the depths has not pulled you into this void to abandon you. It has brought you here to teach you a new way of seeing, a new way of listening. The sensory organs you used in the outer world, the eyes that scanned for trends, the ears that listened for approval, are useless here. They are attuned to a frequency that no longer broadcasts. To navigate this inner landscape, you must awaken dormant faculties, forgotten modes of perception. You must learn the oracular languages of the psyche, the dialects spoken only in the profound quiet of the soul's quarantine. These are the secret channels of communication from the self, which now, in the absence of static, can finally be heard. The first of these languages is synchronicity. In the desert, life appears as a chaotic, random sequence of events, governed by brute force and meaningless chance. But in the sanctum of the retreat, a different pattern begins to emerge. You think of a long-lost friend, and an hour later, they contact you. A question forms in your mind, and the next day, the answer appears in the text of a book you randomly pull from a shelf. A unique, symbolic image haunts your thoughts, and suddenly you see it repeated in the world around you, in a film, on a billboard, in the pattern of clouds. The rational mind, a loyal servant of the zeitgeist, dismisses these events as mere coincidence. But the soul knows better. It recognizes the rhythm, the resonance. Jung understood that synchronicity is the primordial grammar of the universe, the tangible evidence of a causal connecting principle. It is the self whispering to you from the fabric of reality itself. It is not magic, it is a more profound physics. It is the universe rhyming. In the retreat, you learn to stop seeing these events as isolated data points and to start reading them as a sentence, a paragraph in a private, ongoing conversation between your inner world and the outer cosmos. It is the first proof that you are not lost in a void, but held within an intelligent, meaningful order. The second language is the cartography of the dream. In the waking world, dreams are often relegated to the realm of fantasy, a nightly byproduct of a stressed mind. But in the descent, they reveal their true function. They are not escapism. They are field reports from the vast, uncharted territories of your own psyche. The dream world is the source code of your waking reality. Every night, you are granted a pilgrimage to the control room of your own life. The figures who populate your dreams, the menacing shadows, the wise old guides, the enigmatic children, are not random figments of imagination. They are emissaries from forgotten parts of yourself. They are personified complexes, repressed potentials, and instinctual energies knocking on the door of your conscious awareness. The bizarre landscapes, the impossible architecture, the recurring symbols, these are not nonsense. They are a topographical map of your soul. They show you where your energy is trapped, where your old wounds are still unhealed, where a treasure of untapped power lies buried. Learning to read this map is to become an explorer of your own inner continent. The retreat provides the time and the silence not just to remember the dream, but to honor it, to sit with its symbols, and to understand that your nightly dramas are seismic tremors from the very foundations of your being, offering warnings, guidance, and the blueprint for your own wholeness. But how does one learn to perceive this subtle grammar, to read these cryptic maps? This is where the third and most crucial revelation of the descent occurs, the transfiguration of the wound itself. The very quality that made life in the spiritless desert so unbearable, your profound sensitivity, is the key that unlocks these new languages. Society branded this sensitivity as a flaw. You were too sensitive, too emotional, too introverted. You were told it was a weakness to be overcome, a vulnerability to be shielded. But the spirit of the depths reveals the sacred truth. Your sensitivity is not a wound, it is a sensory organ. It is a highly sophisticated perceptual faculty, a psychic tuning fork that resonates with the subtle frequencies of meaning that the blunted senses of the collective can no longer detect. The fractures in your psyche, the very cracks that made you feel broken in the outer world, are the fissures through which the light of the unconscious can now pour. This is the archetype of the wounded healer. Your suffering was not a punishment. It was a calibration. It has tuned you to the whisper of synchronicity, to the symbolic resonance of a dream. The pain you endured was the price of admission into these deeper mysteries. The wound is the eye with which you now see. It is the ear with which you now hear the silent, profound language of the self, preparing you for the great confrontation that lies in the heart of this sacred darkness. Having crossed the threshold and begun to decipher the cryptic languages of the inner world, you now arrive at the heart of the quarantine. This is the crucible, the alchemical furnace where true transformation occurs. The silence is no longer a roaring void, but a vessel, and the purpose of this vessel is not merely to rest or to understand, it is to perform a dangerous and sacred form of psychic chemistry. The spirit of the depths did not pull you from the world simply for a lesson in esoteric linguistics. It brought you here to undertake a task that could not be performed amidst the distractions of the collective, the metabolization of poison. This is not about integrating your personal shadow, that familiar repository of your own rejected traits. The work here is far more perilous. It involves confronting and neutralizing the toxins you have absorbed from the spiritless desert itself, the collective shadow of an entire era which has been circulating in your veins like a slow-acting neurotoxin. You have been brought here to heal, not just from your life, but from your time. This alchemical process begins with a stage the ancient masters called calcinatio, a purification by fire. The quarantine becomes a pyre. The fuel for this fire is every lie you have internalized from the world you left behind. One by one, these deeply embedded articles of faith are dragged into the light of your focused solitude and set ablaze. The belief that your worth is a function of your economic output is burned. The conviction that busyness is a virtue and stillness a sin is burned. The deep-seated need for external validation, the addiction to being seen, the terror of being misunderstood, all are offered to the flames. This is an agonizing purification. As these beliefs incinerate, you experience their psychic death throes. You feel the searing pain of their removal, for these constructs have become entwined with your very sense of self. You believed you were your achievements, your social standing, your curated persona. To burn them feels like self-immolation. You are confronting the chilling realization that the identity you so carefully constructed was not a fortress, but a cage built with bars forged in the fires of collective opinion. During this conflagration, you are forced to face the specter of your own inauthenticity. You are made to witness with excruciating clarity all the moments you betrayed your soul for the sake of acceptance. Every time you silenced your intuition, every time you feigned agreement, every creative impulse you strangled in its cradle for fear of ridicule, these memories rise not as guilt, but as evidence. They are the diagnostic data revealing the extent of the poison spread. You see that you were not merely participating in a culture, you were its host. You ingested its values, breathed its assumptions, and allowed its anxieties to colonize your inner world. This is the confrontation with the venom, the recognition that the unease, the exhaustion, the feeling of being an imposter in your own skin was the direct result of housing a foreign entity. The spirit of the times had been living through you, puppeteering your choices, dictating your desires. The sacred rage that arises from this recognition is the very heat that intensifies the alchemical fire, providing the energy needed to complete the purification. It is the soul's fierce, primal scream for sovereignty. As the fire of calcinatio subsides, what remains is not ash, but a purified essence. The dross of the collective has been burned away, leaving the indestructible core of your being. From this purified state, the next alchemical stage, solutio, begins. You are dissolved in the waters of the unconscious. The rigid structures of the ego, having been weakened by the fire, are now surrendered to a greater fluid intelligence. This is the dark night of the soul spoken of by mystics. It is a period of utter surrender, where you must let go of the need to control, to understand, to navigate. You are floating in the primordial ocean of the psyche, the anima mundi, the very source from which all forms arise. Here you are washed clean of the final, most subtle residues of the poison. The frantic need to do is replaced by a profound capacity to simply be. The incessant mental chatter gives way to a state of deep receptive knowing. You are unmade, unraveled, returned to a state of pure potentiality so that you can be remade not in the image of the collective, but in the true image of the self. The culmination of this harrowing process, the burning away of the false and the dissolving into the true, is not happiness. It is not a state of blissful perfection. The great reward of this inner alchemy is a faculty far more valuable: discernment. You emerge from the crucible endowed with a new kind of vision. It is a form of spiritual clarity, an almost supernatural ability to distinguish what is real from what is merely loud. You can now feel the energetic signature of things. You can sense the subtle poison in a seemingly benign conversation, the hollowness in a celebrated public figure, the deadness in a path that society calls success. Conversely, you can recognize the quiet vibration of authenticity in a person, an idea, or a piece of art. Your entire being has become a compass for truth, calibrated in the fires of your solitude. You no longer need to think your way to a decision. You can feel the resonance of the right path. This is the birth of psychological self-sufficiency. You have learned how to feed your soul from within, drawing nourishment from the subterranean wells of the self. The frantic search for oases in the outer desert is over, for you have discovered the eternal spring at the center of your own being. The world has lost its power to define you, for you have finally met your own defining principle. The sovereign of your inner kingdom has taken the throne. You have navigated the underworld and faced the fire of purification. Now, before we unveil the final form of the awakened soul, ensure you are subscribed, for the ultimate wisdom is reserved for those who complete the pilgrimage. The purpose of this profound alchemical journey was never a permanent exile. The soul is not a creature of eternal isolation. The retreat was a strategic withdrawal, a period of sacred incubation, not a flight into irrelevance. The deep soul was pulled from the world not to abandon its post, but to be re-equipped for a different kind of mission. The ultimate aim of the descent was always the return, but you do not re-enter the world you left behind. That world, in a sense, no longer exists, because the consciousness that perceived it has been irrevocably altered. You return not to reintegrate into the spiritless desert, but to transform it, one drop at a time. The mission is not personal, it is ecological. You were the canary in the coal mine, the sensitive indicator species whose illness signaled the toxicity of the ecosystem. Having found the antidote within, you now have a duty to carry it back. This return is the embodiment of a new archetype. You are no longer the wounded healer, defined by your sensitivity to the poison. You have metabolized that poison and transformed it into medicine. You now emerge as the water bearer. This is the figure who, having discovered the subterranean springs of the spirit of the depths, carries that living water back into the parched landscape of the collective. The water bearer does not arrive with a sermon or a manifesto. There is no proselytizing, no grand announcement of enlightenment. The ego's desire to be recognized as a sage has been burned away in the alchemical fire. The mission is far more subtle and infinitely more powerful. The water-bearer's primary tool is presence. Their very being, now anchored in the quiet depths of the self, emanates a different frequency. It is a frequency of coherence, of stillness, of profound authenticity. In a world of frantic broadcasting, their silence speaks volumes. In a culture of desperate performance, their simple, unadorned existence is a revolutionary act. This authentic presence initiates what can only be called the mirror effect. To those still fully possessed by the zeitgeist, the water-bearer is an enigma, and often an irritant. Your calmness is unsettling to their anxiety. Your lack of need for external validation is a subconscious affront to their entire value system. Manipulators, narcissists, and the chronically inauthentic find themselves profoundly uncomfortable in your presence. The clear, still water of your soul offers them a reflection they are not ready to see. They cannot find a hook for their projections, a chink in the armor of your self-possession. Without a word being spoken, your presence forces a confrontation with their own hollowness, and they are naturally repelled. They will call you aloof, arrogant, or strange, because their language has no words for the sovereignty you embody. Conversely, those who harbor a secret thirst, the other deep souls still wandering the desert, unaware of the reason for their own exhaustion, are drawn to you as if by an invisible gravity. They do not know what it is you have, but they feel its life-giving properties. Your quietude offers them a sanctuary. Your discernment helps them name their own unspoken pain. You do not offer them answers. You offer them a space in which their own answers can finally surface. You become a walking oasis, a zone of sanity where the soul can breathe. The water-bearer's work is not to change the world, but to nourish the seeds of a new one. This is done not through force, but through subtle, persistent irrigation. It might manifest as the artist whose work is imbued with a symbolic resonance that speaks directly to the unconscious of the viewer. It might be the therapist or teacher who listens with such profound depth that their clients discover their own wisdom. It could be the parent who creates a home environment free of the collective's psychic toxins, allowing a child's soul to unfold authentically. It can even be the quiet presence in an office or a community who, by refusing to participate in gossip or hysteria, creates a small island of stability. The water-bearer does not fight the desert. One cannot fight a void. Instead, they introduce a new element, the water of meaning. They create small, localized wetlands of soulfulness. These pockets of depth, of authentic connection and quiet truth, become the seedbeds from which a different kind of culture might one day grow. Their task is not to tear down the old world, but to patiently cultivate the world that is waiting to be born. And so we arrive at the ultimate unspoken reason for the retreat. It was never a pathology. It was a pilgrimage, assigned to the most sensitive souls of an era by the collective unconscious itself. It is the psyche's own self-preservation mechanism, a desperate gambit to save itself from the spiritual desertification it has created. The retreat is an archetypal summons to a sacred quest, to journey into the interior, to face the purifying fire, to find the hidden wellspring of the soul, and to return with the water that carries the memory of what it means to be truly human. It is not an act of rejection, but the highest form of service. It is a love for the world so profound that one is willing to leave it in order to find what can save it. The final state is not perfection, but wholeness. It is the capacity to be in the world, but not of it. It is the strength to bear the terrible beauty of your own depth in a world obsessed with surfaces. The ultimate power is not to control others, but to have achieved such mastery of the self that your very existence becomes a quiet, irrefutable invitation for others to do the same.